Hi guys, welcome to another Chess Passer UK Presents video. Gonna do an analysis video, but something different. Gonna try and do not one, not two, not even three. I'm gonna do 4 slow play games in as quick time as I possibly can. This is just to see if I can do it for one, see if it's watchable, and if so, then perhaps I can get through a lot more long play games. I'm even thinking of perhaps doing some more famous games in openings that I like, so maybe I can learn that way, and while I learn, I want you guys to learn too. So this is a review of the London Chess Classic Open that I played back in December. I played the weekend open this time. I didn't play the long I think it's 9 days. I played just the weekend, which is hard enough, to be honest. First round opponents are 200, which is what I'm going to go through now. No one was less than 170. I'll try and remember as each game comes up. That's the other thing, I'm not doing any pre-work on this. I'm just going to analyse from now, as in, like, I haven't seen these games for, although I remember them. there's reasons for that, and as you'll see, but I haven't done any extra analysis since then, so I'm going to see how I feel with a set of eyes a few months later. See if I spot anything better. I'll probably remember how I felt during these games, so I'll try to explain as I always do. But as I say, going to try and make it a bit of a short video, so I'm going to go straight in. So this is my first game against Philip Makepeace. I think he's 200. If he's not, he's like 198 or something like that. He's on the edge of it. And I remember being black, so I'm going to flip the board. Yeah, no spoiler alert, but I'd like to have been white in this game. So this game mainly was decided right at the beginning. And then I just wanted to put what I've been stressing in all my other videos into play. I just wanted to fight a lot harder than I normally do, even though the position was quite bad. So let's get into it. I played e4, I played c5. I had a quick look, I remember now, I had a quick look at his previous games. He's very much he likes bishop b5. He likes these variations, and funny enough now, I don't mind them. So it's irony that I tried to dodge this quite so badly. You can do it with this, with the move I played, which was, I chuckled to myself. I played a6, and I was like, well, you know, if he goes into a main line, then of course we're going to get my beloved Nadorf, which I love to bits, best opening in chess. And this just avoids bishop b5. It's not a terrible move, even if he transposes into any other variation. You play a6 a lot in the Sicilian, so, okay, maybe you're missing out a little bit. I think the best way to play against it, I can't remember if he does. I think he does. I think it's g3, because you argue that you're wasting time playing a6 to block a bishop if the bishop's ending up on g2. But I don't think it makes much difference, because these lines of Sicilian aren't as sharp as the others. So he does that. Play e6, I'm wanting to play d5, so he stops that straight away and plays c4. He's got a sort of bind on the position. The only good news is this pawn here, this c pawn, which is definitely controlling d5 quite massively, is when he plays his bishop to g2, he's no longer going to be defending this square. So that's a key point of this. So though he's mixing 2 systems here, but it kind of works for now, but his downside is that c pawn is fairly weak. So I play d6, I can't play d5. Just want to get my pieces out. He carries on. There's a big argument after when I play this move. I'm going to come to it in a second, actually, because it's going to pop up. So he plays bishop g2. I think it might even be here. Here I can actually change my mind, and I know this seems like a massive waste of time, but this is how you play against this, and I know this for next time, so if Phil watches this, then I'm a bit unfortunate. But you actually just play e5 here, and you've got a really strong position as black. It's very hard for white to break through. There's no magical attack for white, you know, get his knight out of the way, play f4. That's the whole point. If you have a pawn on e5, it's why people defend like that against the King's Gambit, and why it's fine is because a pawn on e5 is very good defense against any sort of f4 attacks. Okay, I've left this square, but that doesn't matter, because you can always control this square with your bishop and your knight. So this is something that I think, again, is a next level chess for me. Is I need to start thinking about, hang on, this opening is a bit strange. As I say, it's not often you see c4 and a bishop on g2. It's time to start thinking out of the box. And I sort of carried on normally, playing normal moves, when I should really be thinking that this doesn't feel quite right. So I develop a piece, control the centre, he castles. It's still saying e5 here, so at any point I could play e5, because obviously the knight will be nicely supported in here. That there is no pawn to kick the knight on either of these 2 files, so it would have been fine. I still just keep developing. I'm definitely not lost yet, but things are starting to get a little bit hairy after this move. Not this move, sorry, I thought he was playing d4 here. And funny enough, I was waiting for d4, and then of course I would have just taken knight takes. And then I was considering playing, and I don't know if I ever had time for this, but bishop here and then swapping, and then get my bishop to c6 and play it like a accelerated dragon. But it'd be weird playing against this bishop on g2, so I'm not sure how that would have worked out. But that's what I was thinking on d4, but he didn't play d4 yet, didn't need to. He's got time, as they say. So knight c6, and he actually goes on a bit of a funny manoeuvre of this knight, so I guess this is how 200s think. As I say, I'll carry on developing. And now d4, so okay, so it comes anyway, so yeah, this is definitely White's best move. And here, it's a tough move for me to find, and maybe in a future time, now that I've seen this, you know, e5 apparently is still good here. Feels really weird to play it, but it's funny how many times e5 popping up as the best move for me. Obviously it was much better before he'd played d4, because then he wouldn't have the option to take either way now, because I'll just win a pawn. And computer just says takes, and I guess he's just got a nice position, nicer position. He's got a slightly freer movement than I have. I'm going to have a terrible dark square bishop for quite some time due to these pawns, and it's very hard for me to work that bishop outside the chain. You know, I can't really play g6. f5 is probably the best break in trying to get my bishop to g5, but it's a bad bishop, so he as a strong player would be very happy getting his knight into here, and just squeezing me to death basically. But I didn't play e5 because I didn't consider it. I just took. As I say, I was thinking all maybe accelerated dragon position, so I'll go for that. I want to do knight takes and then bishop c6. So he plays a good move. He drops the knight back, so I don't get to do that plan anymore. And as I say, his knights are tricky. He's now trying to get in this way, so now he'll really control d5. And with the knight on f3, perhaps he's also controlling g4. I don't know if we're going to start getting this pawn storm idea coming, but it's very possible. And you see where if I had a pawn on e5, this would be a lot better, like, for me to defend against. So that was a good move, but you know, don't panic yet. I'm definitely not lost. It's he's got a 0.6 edge here. So yeah, just keep playing. I know I've got some sort of play against the c pawn. I knew that the whole time when he played his bishop to g2. So let's move on. So he brings his knight in as said. Now I've got to try and do one break, either d5 or b5. So that's why I put my rook to b8. It's also to clear the diagonal. It's always worth clearing diagonals with that bishop, because as I say, I haven't played e5, so I've got to watch out for e5 coming to me. Didn't happen. So he completely controls b5 too. So he's basically, I mean, the way to look at these positions as black is, white is obviously trying to stop all my play, but he is leaving holes behind in his position. Once pawns rush forward, you've got squares. You know, I've got lots of squares here to think about that, you know, potential for me to get my pieces into, and it's not difficult to get them there. I mean, okay, the knight can jump in straight away and start making c4 look a bit awkward, you know, so still not pessimistic about my position. Come on, let's keep playing, try and beat this guy. Maybe I overextend and we take him down. So I'm attacking the c pawn, just when I move my knight, so I'll have two pieces attacking it. He just defends it again. Like psychological position, I'm feeling okay. He's not exactly trying to crush me anywhere on the board yet. I guess, you know, as I say, f4 is potentially coming, f4, g4, and then, oh dear, my king's going to die. But, you know, again, if that happens, you've always got time to just drop knights back and organise defences. You know, you're not just lost just because your opponent pushes his pawns on the king side. But he's basically just trying to stop all my play on the queen side. So I dropped my knight in. I had a choice of coming here too. The reason I didn't go this way is because I didn't want. Actually, it doesn't work anyway because obviously he's defending the c pawn. But there was lots of reasons why I didn't want to play my knight to e5, and that was because I didn't want to help him with this plan. Though potentially I'll just come back, yeah, but that'd just be a waste of time. So we're not going to go for that. So the idea of knight, I should explain this, is I am attacking this pawn. I'm also uncovering this bishop to b5, so I am still trying to play b5 myself. I've got to try and do a break. That's what I've been going on about. He can't push the pawn, he can't kick the knight because I'll just take the c pawn. So bishop d7, I come back. The idea being now that he's played his bishop to d2, I might be able to get into d4. Be a bit more of a hassle there. Maybe play e5 afterwards, try and solid that knight. He wants to push the b pawn, so I put my knight in, as I said. Drops bishop back, and now I don't have to play what I played, that's for sure. Here's the big mistake, unfortunately. And then my opponent just doesn't let me off the hook after this. So realistically, I just need to come back and just accept that the knight's not doing anything there. But because I've put it there, I try to keep it there. And of course, I've basically given him everything. This square on d5 is now, you know, I did mention earlier that was his whole plan. So this was just a massively bad move. The idea was literally, oh well, maybe my knight was good too, but he can challenge my knight, and that's the annoying thing. Once this knight goes in, he's got bishop e3, and then he can challenge my knight, and I can't really challenge his, not without giving him some really dangerous pawns. So the knight goes straight in. I drop the queen back. As I say, if I take, I'm in big trouble, but there's the bishop attacking the knight, so it's all a little bit one-way traffic now. I'll take that knight, just gets replaced by another knight. I try to break out. He just takes, of course, and then takes the knight that's defending the pawn, takes the bishop. I've now got horrendous pawns all over the shop. Both these pawns are in trouble. And also this bishop is just a lovely bishop. But I'm going to start whizzing through a little bit here, because though I do keep making moves, this is a very nice technical win. He never lets me off the hook. So I'll try and organise some play against the c pawn. Swaps off rooks, doubles up against the d pawn. This one is unbelievably weak. I make some luff because I'm going to get mated on the back rank if I'm not careful. He defends c pawn. I try to attack it. Here comes the pawn storm. Here I thought I might be getting something, but he's worked it out. There was a clever move actually. I can't remember where it is. I think this is it actually. Yeah, I saw this in advance. If I take, obviously, I'm just getting. I'm losing massively due to takes. Rook takes check. King h7, and then of course you can see it coming because I'm doing this so slowly. But yeah, and then the bishop comes in and pins. And I saw this, so I was like, well, I'm not going to let you win that way. You're going to win by being a pawn up. So I'll take the pawn. Obviously that c pawn is still massive, very difficult to stop. Though I thought I played a good defence, but he found some lovely moves. So we don't take. We just bring the queen back, stopping the false loss instantly. And here I got to say I wasn't feeling too bad. I was like, oh, my king's going to get over. I might be able to stop that pawn. I can't swap rooks because that's just lost, so I block with the bishop. I saw this point, and I really believed at this point I may be getting a draw, because I was like, well, the king can get there, the rook can look after these pawns, but he doesn't let me off. He just doesn't. I'm trying to cut his king off. I thought this was quite imaginative. I thought, oh, I'm defending along the 5th rank, but it's not enough. Pawn keeps coming. I'm like, well, where's he going? Well, surely my king's going to take that pawn, and he comes out with a beautiful move here, which I'll give you a second to find, because it is a nice move. Remember what I was saying? On my rook's brilliant. Is cutting off his king. His king can't come over to help the pawn. If the pawn's marched, the rook's defending. You know, this is all great for me. And then overlooking this, which he hasn't. Brilliant move. I'm completely tied up. I can't move the king. The king can't move to defend this e6 pawn. Otherwise he just queens. So I'm basically lost here. But that was a lovely spot, rook c6. So I didn't mind losing to that move. And he traps my rook. That's checkmate on the rook, and that means that he wins the easy pawn ending because my king is far away. So that was game 1. So that was a nice start to the tournament. So I went to stay with my wife in a local hotel, and I felt better for the next morning, where I come across this chap. This guy's a 180, so you know he got a little bit weaker in strength, and at least in rating strength. And to be honest, this is the beginning of the. I mean, I lost that game. I got outplayed, as I say, and I lost control of d5, and I didn't play e5. So there's things for me to take away. But this game was almost synonymous with my tournament, where, well, you'll see. Let's just say the tournament could have been a lot better. but I kept making silly moves in positions where I was quite strong. Apart from that first game where I just got completely outplayed. Anyway, so my opponent, I can't say his surname, but his first name's Michael. Young kid. He'd lost a game previously, so he wasn't feeling too good either. Otherwise, I wouldn't be playing him, obviously. And I felt aggressive, so I was like, well, I will play my normal Dutch against the English, because it's basically now the only time I play the Dutch. So there's a tip for you for the future. Nothing to talk about just yet. This is now going to be a reverse Grand Prix attack, so a bit like when White plays Knight C6 against the Sicilian, except I'm a move down. But he plays a little bit inaccurately, so I get quite a good build up. I mean, this is what happens sometimes when people play the English and they're a bit unfamiliar with what Black's doing. They tend to just revert to playing their normal standard moves, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you've got to be at least a little bit aware when things change. That's what I was saying earlier in that first game. I didn't even consider playing E5, and obviously I'm always going to consider playing E5 now. So this is what I mean by the reverse Grand Prix attack. If you think about this as being the dragon position as Black, and on the white side of it, you play Knight C6, you play Knight F3, trying to attack on the king side basically. So another developing move, developing move, developing move. Okay, so the first little bit of a tricky. The reason I played my bishop to b4 is to pin this knight, because what it does is, if he ever attempts to swap off, say he plays a6, I'll just take that knight, and it gives me a little bit more control over e4. And also potentially, because e4 is a little bit under control, maybe f4 is easier to play as well, because I don't have to worry about a knight jumping in to that square afterwards. It also weakens d5, so I can play d5 at some point. Remember, I'm playing a kind of Sicilian, so d5 is definitely a break you'd want to play. So he doesn't play a3, but that's the reason why. And the other reason is if he blocks with the bishop and I take this way, then that equals plan 2. I'd solid the centre, and then because his bishop's on c3, it makes f4 a lot easier, because his bishop's no longer defending through. And I've had games like that, and they've been good games for Black. So I was happy to see either a6 or bishop d2. He didn't play either of those. He played e4, which is a very, very unusual move, and bad. It is bad. He's playing what's called the Botvinnik pawn structure. I think it's Botvinnik. Someone can correct me later. But when you play this sort of pawn structure as white, I believe it is. But this is only good when there's not a pawn already on f5. So my opponent's basically just playing a system he's been told, and he's just followed it. But he's already got problems, and it's not really hard for me to work this out. Remember, this knight's pinned, so has to take with the pawn. Now I can take that knight, and now look at his pawns. They're all over the place. The bishop's not very good. It's stuck behind the e-pawn for 1. It's babysitting because the knight on f6 is always attacking it, and these pawns are atrocious. And I play enough openings as Black where I know that c-pawn is always vulnerable to a knight coming to a5. It's very difficult to defend that square. So that's what I knew when I was swapping off to make this pawn structure. So I'm already better here. I'm actually +1 already, and it's only move 8. So we'll move on a bit. I just obviously want to get my light square bishop out, get it out to a good square. If I can get it out to e3, remember, I'm just going to go keep going for c4. So it's funny, 2 games in a row I'm trying to get to c4. Rook b8. If I play bishop e6, he'll take the b pawn. Obviously, it'd be on pre. So I'll just castle, nothing wrong with that. Obviously puts an attacking piece on the f-file as well. Makes sense, perhaps the knight's going to jump in at some point. That'd be beautiful. Just wants to get castled. And now I enact my plan, which is first b6, so he can't take the b-pawn. And secondly, the bishop can also come here to attack c4, so you get this sort of setup. And loads of people who play the Nimzo Indian will know about this plan. And it happens in the Dutch as well. So, you know, that's one thing about if you go for a few openings and you can remember some ideas, you can use them in other games. So he brings his queen in, he's attacking the c6 knight. I just move the knight, of course, and I'm starting my attack on this pawn as well. f4, he's got to try something. His position's a bit of a mess. This is called mixing it up, shall we say. But he's minus 2.6 here, so I'm nearly 3 pawns up here, and I haven't actually won any material yet. So the point being is it's a bit leery doing this sort of attack when you haven't castled, because my rook will cut off the king. So I just get along with attacking, just keep attacking. If I can win a central pawn here, he's smashed basically. So tries this. This is a little bit of a tricky line, and I was expecting this move as well. And my next move came quite quickly. He's defending this pawn. But not luckily, I mean obviously I worked this out, but he's got a few weak squares, and this one is particularly weak. If I can get my queen there, for instance, which I can do almost straight away here, and tempt him to take another pawn. So I actually gain a load of tempi. So I started playing pretty well around here. So I take, and you think, oh no, well this pawn's going to drop, which is almost definitely what happens from memory. Yep, he takes it. But then I've got a nice little move here. Queen d3, and you're like, well, yeah, you talked about it, but yeah, I'm actually eyeing up this rook. I knew I had this tempi. Like, you got to defend that rook first, and now I'm attacking that pawn again 3 times, so I can have that pawn, and once I take it, your king's cut off if I take it with the knight. So you know, I must be good. A queen in the middle of the board. Look where his king is. You know, this must be good for black, and it is. It's +3 here. So he tries to swap queens, and I thought, that's a bit of annoying. Because obviously he's now attacking my queen and defending the rook, so it was a good spot by him. It doesn't save the position. I actually ignore it. I think no, yeah, that's right. I do ignore it. I play bishop a6 because I'm like, well, the bishop's still going to be attacking the rook after the exchanges, and now he really has to decide what to do with that queen. I'm also threatening mate if he moves his queen away. The bishop's skewing as well. Obviously, he can play his queen to b2, but he's going completely backwards there, and you know, plenty of moves. Even knight just takes is going to win, because I'm going to threaten so many checkmates after rook d8. It's just going to be almost impossible for him to defend everything. Both these files completely covered, so it'll just be mate. So I'm obviously feeling very good in this game. Don't get me wrong, and obviously that means he has to swap queens, and my position's still great here. I'm attacking his rook. He doesn't have time to take this knight. That is the whole key. Whoops. Because if he ever takes the knight, I'll take his rook. And then he has a little bit of a trick. I've got to watch his long diagonal. There's a little trick here, but you know, nothing to worry about yet. So he moves his rook, and I take the pawn. And even here, it's okay. Though this is a blunder. It is a blunder, and a one-move blunder. It's so silly. I mean, what am I doing? All I need to do, because everything's on pre, this is the bad news of the white position. And I considered this, and I was like thinking, yep, this is good. You know, I'm keeping my material. Bishop takes bishop, knight takes. He still can't castle. I'm going to pick this pawn up. It's all good. But I got flashy. Of course I got flashy. And that's the annoying thing. I was also considering potentially knight coming in here and just keep attacking the rook and saying, well, where's your rook going to go next? I obviously didn't want to drop the knight. And I thought I was solving all my problems and everything in one go. I was thinking, well, if I take the knight, it's flashy for one reason, because it's pinned, but it's okay. I can break that pin next move by bringing the rook over to e8. I didn't want him to castle. You know, I was tempted quite a lot by this. And in fact, the best move is really pretty. The best move is actually knight g4. And this becomes a little bit tricky, but I'll go for it. You know, because I'm attacking this pawn is the whole point. I just want to show this because it is pretty brutal. And you're like, well, hang on a minute, aren't you losing a whole... Ooh, sorry. Attacking the bishop. So, what's the move here? Oh yeah, so yeah, just take the pawn. And it's just a safe position. This is why the computer likes it. If knight takes, then of course you win the rook. So this isn't it. But I remember looking at this game in particular right at the end. And knight g4 is beautiful, but I can't remember exactly why. I wish I could remember what the killer move was. And it's weird because you're like, well, why can't he just do this? Let's have a quick look, see if I can remember. I probably can't, and I don't want to waste too much time here. Let's just say black's better here. Sorry guys. I think that the biggest point of this is I didn't take the right piece, and this goes from +3 to 0.5 for white. Even I follow up correctly, I have to take that because the bishop's actually got no squares. The bishop moves away, I lose the knight on e4. But I'm already disheartened because I know I've taken with the wrong piece. So I start playing really badly now. So I didn't react well to blowing a +3 position. Let's put it that way. I still thought, oh yeah, all my pieces are flooding in. But that's just, you know, it's a good move. It's like, what? Well, I can just take it, can't I? But then I'm just losing everything again. If I take the rook, he just takes the knight first, and then he's attacking not only the knight with the king, and the rook he's attacking, but he's also threatening check here as well to win this knight after takes. So it's a good move by him. I played the best move, but you know, this is not looking good. He nabs my rook. I again take the wrong piece. This is just a game of taking with wrong pieces. If I take with the knight, I'm leaving myself options. I've got some squares, you know, 3 pieces in the middle of the board against the king. You never know. Maybe there's something there. And knights are really tricky. He can just move out the way, gets his rook involved. But the game goes on. But the move I played was just bad. But this is all because of earlier letting him off. And definitely something everyone can work on is resetting. And I didn't reset in this game. So he just moves his king again, just to activate his rook. I'll try to get tricky. I'm just basically trying to see if he can walk into anything that may look like a mating net. You know, I've got the light squares covered with the bishop. You never know. Actually, no, that's a lie, because his bishop's actually covering all the light squares. No, so I'm just desperation. I'm just moving pieces around, basically, hoping he'll drop a piece, which is terrible, which is why we're going to whiz to the end. Because I just blunder really quickly now. Check. And he just takes my bishop and I resign. So that was the end of that. So that was a game that could have been, but wasn't. So let me go to the third game. I know you're seeing a trend here. Well, the third game, I'm starting to get a little bit miffed, I've got to say. This game was actually after the last game I'm going to show you. I'm just doing it slightly out of order because it just shows the theme of I was getting good positions and then playing really badly afterwards. So this one was against a guy who had a fantastic tournament, actually. He ended up with a 2150 performance, and he was only 1700. He didn't have an ECF, so that means a 1700's a 140, I think. He's not a 140. I mean, he played great. And I was obviously a little bit frightened when I was playing him because I've seen his previous results. I got a down. He got a down float when he played me. This was like round 4. I only played 4 of the 5 rounds. I was on 1.5 at this point. Was I on 1.5? No, I was only on 1 point at this point, which we'll come to. So I'm white and I get to play e4, so that's great. I only ever not play e4 when black blatantly plays openings I don't like, which we'll come to later. So open Sicilian, which is great. And it's a Najdorf, and I like the Najdorf on both sides. I'm one of those weird chess players who enjoys both the attack and the defense of both sides. And I really like the bishop g5 line for both. So we'll skip through this because I'm sure those who've seen this before know it. If you don't know it, it's all about white developing as quickly as possible to try and get an attack. This is already a bit of a weird move. Queen c7. I didn't really know how to respond to this. I remember thinking quite a while about taking. Taking is actually best. I'll show you a quick line. Takes, and then queen d2. And of course I could see this far in my head and I'm like, well, you know, what am I doing after this? I wasn't really 100% sure. It's a bit unfamiliar with me. A lot of the ideas that I have in these openings are based on experience of playing different positions, and this one would have been a too out of my book too early. So maybe something for me to look at in the future. But queen c7 isn't quite right. So I just carry on and make it a main line. Even b5, it still wants me to play bishop takes f6. I'm not interested, as I've already explained. Even if it is the best move, it's not a move that I like or feel comfortable with taking. I don't know how to make that move a bad move after he takes the f pawn, because it just looks like he's got loads of pawns in the center and he can just hide his king there. So that's why I didn't do it. So just ignore this b4 push, because if he pushes it, I'm probably going to sack a knight on d5. So he develops. I develop 2. I just want to bring my last rook into the game, and then either queen g3 and e5, or knight into d5. Either of these 2 plans are what I'm aiming for. So bishop e7. We're pretty much really transposing to a main line here, and I get my rook in. And now he plays another weird move, and again, okay, I know this is probably not best because I don't normally see this move ever, funny enough. So I was a little bit caught out by it, which is bad. And the point is, he hasn't castled anything, so it's a bit early to be playing your knight out to the side of the board. And where I was always looking for this sacrifice, there's another sacrifice in the Sicilian, this one. And this one is really, really strong here. And I just didn't consider it. And it's another one that, you know, I'll put in the bank. As I say, I've not seen this so early before this knight c5, and again, I didn't respond well to it. So, you know, part of chess is learning from your mistakes. So if you take, then you take this one, and now you're going to get a monster knight. Oh, computer actually wants to take with the g pawn. Okay, well let's play. So if you take with the bishop, which would probably be the most natural. Ah, of course. Now the king is massively exposed. I mean, where does he go? Go here. The knight's coming in, I'm sure. The whole time I'm on this rook. So yeah, that's why it's good for white. It's not really a proper sacrifice, is it? If you're after pawn takes, you're attacking too many things. It's just a beautiful sacrifice. There's a lot of mileage there. The computer's going crazy with quite a few lines. So I missed my chance here. As I say, missed my chance in lots of games. Didn't respond well, just moved the king out the way. Natural move, just want to get out of the way. If he takes the bishops, there's no checks, the queen's not pinning the c pawn. It's an okay move, it's just not the best move, and he follows up well. b4 is correct. The knight on c5 is actually stopping me playing my my knight to d5 ideas. Just doesn't work. Unfortunately, you can just take it. I'm like thinking, oh, I might be able to break through, but I'm just not. So like in my head, I was like, well, you know what? That's pinned. Maybe the knight can get into here, but he can just take it with a bishop. Maybe the knight's getting to c6. But I couldn't see the finish, and there isn't one. So I was kind of happy I didn't play knight d5. I was gearing up for it after bringing my rook over to e1. So that's okay. So just move my king out the way. He played b4, and I'm like, okay, well, my knight's a bit awkward there, but it's not terrible either. I can see bishop b7 coming. I've sort of played into his hands, and this is why the Nadel's such a great opening when it goes well for black, because everything's just flooding into the centre of the board. The two knights are attacking, the bishop's attacking, the queen's pinned. But got to get the knight back into the game, so it's also, funny enough, potentially coming into h5 to attack the knight on f6 if he castled kingside. So, you know, the knight's not a terrible piece over on g3. It's also defending the e-pawn. h6, fair enough. It forces me to take. I can't go back. He'll play g5. So it takes with the bishop. I'm basically just breaking the pin here. I'm just moving the queen out of the way so the bishop's no longer pinning. I'm also defending the knight. Obviously, the bishop's attacking the knight. And I'm also potentially, at some point in time, going to play g5 where the queen is actually supporting this once the knight moves out of the way. Because remember, the knight can go into here now. There's no knight on f6. So he stops knight on coming into h5. That's a good move. If he keeps pushing, then perhaps I've got no squares, which makes me play my next move. Got to decide where to put that bishop now. So he goes back to e7, allowing me to play bishop e2. It's no longer going to get taken by this really strong knight. This bishop I want to keep. It's a good bishop. I don't mind sacrificing this pawn. I'll go into that in a second. I'm basically after this one. So if he takes this g pawn, I'll take the h pawn. I'll be attacking this one. I'll also be having ideas of playing rook to g1 and maybe getting an attack down the g file. So I wasn't bothered about letting this pawn go. I had to accept in this game that things weren't going well. I mean, I said that right away when I didn't respond well to this c5 knight. So he actually kicks my knight into a good square. Very kind of my opponent. All I had to work out was that it was never getting trapped, and it just isn't getting trapped, so that's all good for me. And allows my knight into a good square. So I fought back well here. Look at my knight. Like, that knight was not that long ago on e2. And now look at it. It's in f6. It's checking. It's going to make it very... If he castles queenside at any point, his queenside is completely open. So, you know, where's he going to put his king? And if he loses his dark square bishop, then, of course, that's one of his big advantages, is that he has a dark square bishop. So he can control the dark squares easier than I can. So, you know, if he swaps, then it's good for me, which he does. And also, I'm leaving squares for my pieces now as well. My knight can redirect and come back into better squares. So this game's turned round. White is now winning again. Winning is a strong term, but has played. Let's say I've got the initiative once more. He takes the pawn. Why not? It's a free pawn apparently. And I offer the bishops off the board now as well, because my ideas are this knight is really, really strong versus this knight. This knight doesn't really control or attack anything. It's just floating around in the middle of the board. It's defending e6, but you know, so what? So his last best piece is this one. So I'm just going to take it off the board. So he activates his rook, which is fair enough, because he's not going to castle. If he castles, I'm just going to mate him because of queen in and then queen checkmate. So this is the other way to activate the rook, so good move. So I bring my knight in. That was, remember I said about freeing up some squares. Okay, so there's maybe a threat on c2 at some point. Just going in for the check. Remember this knight? I said it's a good knight. He's tricky. He can bounce all over the place. So he tries to run to the king side, which is, again, you know, if he gets his king to g8 or even h7 potentially, he'll be pretty safe over there. I mean, he's not. He knows that at the end of the day, his king isn't safe, so he needs to do something, which has given me time to keep making my moves. So I just want to double up. Not exactly sure where or when, but doubling up rooks on open files can never be a bad idea. And he blunders. Finally, a proper blunder this time. The other idea of playing rook d2 is to defend the c-pawn, which now means my knight can move, which it does, with great effect. So, obviously I'm attacking his rook, so if he tries to save the rook, say, let's put it here, then unfortunately, can you see it? I can just take here. And his position basically collapses. It's, e6 is just gone. I mean, this is what he'd basically missed when he played knight d7. So, I will say we're both really low on time here. I mean, in about 2 minutes' time, I'm going to tell you what the times were in the important moments. So he accepts that and he takes the pawn, which is definitely the right way of going about this. You're going to lose the exchange, so you take as much material as you can. And at this point, we're both playing an increment. I didn't want to ruin it by saying that early on, but we burnt a lot of time, both of us, at the beginning of the game, because we didn't really know what was going on. Is basically the way I see it. I didn't, and didn't seem like my opponent did either. So this queen move into centre is basically to stop rook coming into... Actually, maybe he could have played that anyway. Do I have time? No, he loses his queen. So yeah, rook d5, I take f6. Rook takes d2, I got check here on h8 and I win the queen. So at this point, I might even play at the speed that we were playing, because like 30 seconds of move. All I was trying to do was swap off material and just be better. I have to be a little bit careful here. He's got little tricky moves on the back rank. I have to always watch out for knight going somewhere and causing havoc. And there's tricks here, and I'll leave it to you to have a look at, because remember, I've got to get through 4 games. I've still got 1 to go. But let's just say, when you've got no time, you see a lot of ghosts, and I was seeing a lot of mate threats from my opponent. That knight was a pain. So I tried to move my king to make less trouble. To be honest, just swapping was probably good enough. I think this is where I was actually worried. I thought he had this, and I thought, well, if I take... then he's mating me this way. There's mate here. That's what I was seeing. There isn't. It's actually a draw, but that's what I was seeing in this position. And plus, I want to win this game. I don't want to lose this game. So that was first trick. And then the other way, if I don't take it, and I was thinking, oh well, I can just move the king. No, if I go this way, I think he takes the pawn. Let's just go the obvious way. And in queen h1, check. Again, it's a ghost, because I'm just got no time on my clock. And I was thinking, oh no, I'm getting mated. But I could just give the exchange back. I'm probably still doing all right here. Oh, hang on, no, that doesn't work. Hang on a minute, why doesn't that... Why? What's going on here? Oh, okay, I've got some counter checks coming my way. Yeah, I've got rook check here. This is quite good. This is mate in 1 with queen here. So yeah, so I was seeing ghosts basically, but this is what happens when you're in increment, and perhaps I shouldn't have spent so long early game. But anyway, what happens now is he actually plays superbly, and though I keep trying tricks, which I'm going to demonstrate, he's always got my back rank, which is really frustrating. All I'm trying to do is maybe take the e6 pawn with pins. You know, I still feel like I'm attacking well, and I'm still in a plus score here. But I start getting a bit worried and start defending my back rank. Then I get nervous and I try to swap queens because I'm like, oh, rook should beat knight, but it doesn't. That was a blunder. Swapping queens is just a bad move. All I need to do, and I know it seems easy, but when you've got no time on your clock, and this is my own fault, I'm not saying, you know, I'm not going to whine about it because I could have moved faster earlier on. And I'm just better here because I'm centralised. I'm eventually going to get into that king. It's going to happen. And I knew that, but I knew that I also only had 30 seconds on my clock. So when he's still trying to threaten, you know, if you know, you can be really casual here and drop your queen back and defend your rook that way and drop your rook and stuff like this just scream through your head. So I was like, let's just swap queens and get it over with. But unfortunately, I've underestimated how strong his pawns are. And that knight is just such a pain here. And I will go a little bit fast now because I want to get through to the last game. I try to get active with my rooks. I was trying to run my c pawn because that's my pass pawn. All the time he's threatening forks to win my rook, by the way. That's why my king keeps trying to move to weird squares. I'm also trying to stop all these pawns coming down to checkmate me. It's like an armada. What's it called? Space invaders. I can't stop them. I keep trying to threaten stuff. But yeah, I resign here because I'm just dead lost. But that was all because of time trouble and so frustrating. Like this game and the game just before, I just thought, well, I definitely was better. I didn't think I was better. I fought hard, as in fighting hard, but I just didn't get my results. So we'll come to the last game, and this is the only game where it's very interesting for me, at least, because of the opening that was played. But I did win a game before this loss. But I knew my tournament wasn't to be when I lost that one as well. I withdrew. I didn't play the 5th round. I was pretty tired. And like I say, that one went to the increment. And these are really long time controls at the London Chess Classic. So pretty tired. But this was the game in the morning before I played that game. No, this was the game the night before. Was it the night before? Doesn't really matter. But this guy's a Norwegian kid. He's 16. He's won 7-8 ECF, and I think his FIDE was 1970-ish. Anyway, he also plays the centre counter, so I didn't play e4. It's a bit bad to really change your whole opening approach just because of one opening, but I've now got a nice little line to play against the centre counter, so I'm weirdly looking forward to the next time I play against it. But knight f3 is not in my comfort zone at all, but it must have been a morning game because I had a lot of energy. I was happy to sit there and just work stuff out. I've seen lots of master games like you guys have, and I know that knight f3 is just a very slow burner attack. If you want to really make it simplistic, then what I'm aiming for is just rook c1 to control the c file, bishop g2, and eventually something happen on c6. Was my vague idea of how I see these openings and how they end up being when the top players play and when they win. So I can't really discuss too much theory here because I don't know any, which is fantastic. I know that my knight will look good on e5 at some point, so I'm going to aim for that as well. Also aiming to play c4, which I play now. And my opponent's gone for a cagey, like King's Gambit decline setup, which is fine as well. Bishop b7 is pretty standard. I used to play this as black. So activate the knight. Knights look really pretty, so happy with that. Okay, so he's offering to exchange one of them. I'm like, well, you take, I take, so all good. I don't mind. I maintain my knight. He could then obviously bring his other knight back. Maybe that's a plan he could have gone with. Just keep swapping pieces. But instead, because he's the slightly higher rated player and he knows that, he's being active, and knight e4 is a good move. I know that I can move that knight though after knight, well, we'll show you what happens. And after I put the knight back in, I'm attacking the queen again, and that's giving me time to play f3. In a minute. First, I don't have to play it straight away because I'm threatening to win a pawn. Also, this queen is not defended, so at some point I can make a judgment call of whether taking here is good, because it has to take with the e-pawn. So I give myself some options. But first of all, I'm asking him about his knight. And he asked me about mine. So I was like, touche, mister. So I just brought it back. I'm like, well, okay. E6 is now potentially weak at some point. The knight on d3 can get into f4. Perhaps I can get into there. The knight's not a terrible piece here. It's not blocking the dark square bishop. I'm still controlling e5. So knight back's okay. And again, perhaps I'm going to now kick his knight. And I'm now controlling c5. So it's not easy for him to just drop his knight back to c5. So happy with knight d3. This is a move that he's basically, just remember what I said about taking the pawn and his queen being on pre, so he's just moving his queen. He's also defending e6. Perhaps his queen can get into here at some point, you know, just be positive. We now ask that knight where he's going to go. So he goes back to a similar square, controlling all the squares that we just said, also threatening to take this pawn. So I defend it, maintain the centre, he attacks it again. I attack the bishop. He drops it back. I say, you're going to do it again? Play tease. He said no. So rook c8. Good move. Obviously lining up rooks and queens is always good when there's potential to open up that particular file. I say no. Not opening that file. No, sir. No, it's going to be on my terms, not yours. So not only do I mean, because I get the option now to take if I want to, because he has to make a choice about this knight. Come back to f7, so I'm like, well, that knight's not doing too much there. It's funny, when knights go backwards, they're probably the best piece to not be that negative unless they go back to the back rank, because he's still potentially being able to play e5 here, so the knight's doing an okay job. This move is slightly premature, and I got annoyed with myself later, and though I get away with it, it's silly. The idea is bishop there, I've pinned this pawn, and then I just bring in the knight. And then I'm attacking that pawn twice, and you know, you got to deal with it. So the rook's also on this diagonal, but it's premature because I've fallen into his knight's move backwards. Not only is it doing this, but at any point he can just at any point he can just bring his knight in and attack the bishop, which helps his knight get redeveloped and potentially attacks f3. You know, so this move was not accurate at all. I didn't have to play that. I could have played just developing the bishop somewhere. This bishop's not doing anything yet. Maybe here because of what I said about this coming potentially. Potentially a3, maybe. Well, that's a little bit risky because it leaves it on pre there. So maybe just bishop b2 would have been fine. And wait to see what happens with this knight before I commit to something like bishop h3, because this idea is not going away. It's a good idea. So he pins my knight, which is good. He's, like I say, he's playing okay. He can't do it yet. That's the idea behind this. But he knows that he's going to play this here. And once it goes there, the bishop can no longer maintain this pin on this pawn. So this is a nice little move. He's playing well. And that also, was there fronts there? I can't remember. I know this b4 move was, I needed to play it. Oh yeah, of course, because he's going to just take the knight otherwise and win this pawn. So I have to defend the pawn. And now the knight comes in and harasses the bishop. So the bishop's gone back. So my plan's gone now. The only good news is the knight on f7 is no longer defending this square. So e5 is a bit harder to play. Plays it anyway. Oh! The point being, the bishop can take this knight at any point, and then I'm no longer attacking this square enough times, which is why bishop b2 earlier instead of bishop h3 was just a big edge for white, which would have lasted for a long time. He's actually better here. So I ignore it. If I take it, as I say, it's just going to be bad. Because in fact, take is threatening to maybe even play e4 because of the pin. The bishop's pinned against the rook. So when I move the rook, that breaks all the pins. And it's weird, there's something else I really liked about. Oh yeah, and I continue defending f3. It's really important I do. This rook f2, I know it sounds really innocuous, and I don't even know how to make it sound good, but it's a really good move. I remember thinking at the time, this is actually necessary, and any other move actually gives black a massive edge. He's still got an edge anyway, but this was a nice defensive find, and I was quite happy with that. It's key. I know it's key that I had to defend that f-pawn. I'm just going to play a move. What was I worried about here? Because I know there was something. That was it. That was it. It was something so simple like this. The queen just coming in. Because now he's attacking here. He's attacking here. He's attacking here. And my position falls apart. But with my rook on f2, everything's defended, including my queen, which is on pre. So that's why I like rook f2 so much. I remember it had a lot of extra to it. So rook f2 was a good find. I wasn't just lost. Then he takes, which is probably a little bit inaccurate. Doesn't need to take yet. He can keep the tension. But I'm like, okay, all right, that's all right. You still have weak squares on e6, f5 that maybe I can get to at some point. Remember that if I can ever kick that knight, which I can, the bishop can always come back here. There's ways to kick it. I'll just kick it with the h-pawn. I always had this in mind. And he starts playing inaccurately, really inaccurate now. Okay, I get this move. He just wants to take over this file, but he's not following through with any big plan. And he starts letting me get into the squares I want to be in. This knight's fantastic on f4, and it can no longer be swapped off by this bishop. This bishop's now biting on air. There's nothing for this bishop to do. I now control h3, so h4 is a real threat. Once the knight moves, I can, because the knight being on f4, I defend this square, so I can get this skewer. And also aim for e6. So he starts breaking that pin. He knows that's coming. So of course I'm going to follow through. Bishop in, queen moves. And now here a miscalculation by me, which is a shame because it looks so tempting here. But White's got a really good move here. And I didn't find it. I'm not going to lie. I played something that I thought was winning too, but there's one little flaw in it, which we'll go through very shortly. But the best move here is just bishop f5. You just look at his king. How does he defend these pawns? Everything of mine's around his king. He's in big trouble here, basically. I can even march the pawn up. It's all bad for black. But I got flashy, and I saw another way. Which, as I say, this tournament, this is the only game where I got away with it, because I was pretty flashy in a couple of the other games too, and I didn't get away with it. So the moral of this may be just start playing proper chess rather than just stuff that looks pretty. So, knight e6, this is so tempting, and you'll see why in a second. Knowing full well that this pawn is going to go with check, of course, I'm like, oh yeah, you take that pawn, I'm going to play my rook here. How are you defending g7? You're just dead. I'm also threatening just bishop in and just win that way, you know. So this move was really tempting for me. I found it really hard to resist, but it's got refutation. But I'm just lucky my opponent didn't see it. So queen takes, rook here. Oh yes, surely you're dead. You can't take this bishop. You haven't got time. Excuse me. Because check. And then what happens? Remember this little fella down here? Checkmate. So that's how quick I thought the game was going to be after he took that pawn. But he doesn't have to take that bishop for one. He doesn't take the bishop. He at least sees that. But here he's got a really nice little resource, which is almost impossible to find, I guess. But it's one of those situations where it's only moves. You can actually take this pawn. And you're like, what? Surely I'm just going to smash through anyway. And this is computer line, so neither of us saw this. But, it's hard for black to choose to be in this position. Let's put it that way. And the computer's as cold as anything, just moves out the way. And the best that white's got is just bishop here attacking the rook. This is 0-0-0. This is why chess is just like the most annoying game in the world. And then he can just play knight here. And now he's attacking everything. And my rook's trapped. You know, this is actually possibly almost an edge for black. I mean, he's still 0-0-0. Maybe I can sack the exchange or something like that. Take this rook with, take the knight with the rook or something, and then who knows? It's still a big chaotic mess. But I didn't see any of this. All I saw was that he can take here or the move that he played, and he didn't play the move that led to mate, because that would have been too easy for me. But that was just shows you the resources that you have in a position. You take this pawn, allow this attack. But seeing knight g5, maybe, well, neither of us saw it. So he played this one. And I was like, yeah, but I've worked this out, so this is all good. What are you going to do now? You know, I'm still threatening to take this pawn on g7. So tries bishop f8. This is a desperado. It's check, so I have to deal with it. So I take it. He then takes with the rook, but now he's missed the follow-up. Of course, if I just take his rook here, I'm still better, but it's not as good as what I actually play. This is plus 3 now, and it's tempting because I get a load of material, and my attack's probably still going, but he's now got chances, whereas before with the move I play, he doesn't have any. There's a nice move here, really nice move, and it's basically continuing the attack. There we go, boom. I'm attacking his queen. I'm also threatening huge problems here with the queen coming in. And if not the queen coming in, if he goes the other way, there's an undiscovered check with rook back to g1, winning the queen anyway. If knight takes, which is what happens, I just take the queen. But he hasn't even seen past that bit. I was quite proud of this. At least I saw this part to the end. This is the annoying thing. I probably saw all of this, but I didn't see anything past him taking that pawn, which is just stupid chess, basically. I analysed 2 lines, and there was a third line, and I needed to look at that third line. Maybe I wouldn't have played what I played. So he tries to take the bishop. Of course, I take the queen. And here he's like, well, I must be doing okay. But unfortunately, that's a cheapo fork, because I'm attacking the knight because it's on pre, because the rook's pinning the pawn, and I'm also attacking the rook, and he can't use the rook or the knight to defend each other, so he resigns. And that was my London Chess Classic Open, which definitely could have gone better. I can't say it could have gone worse, because it was pretty bad. I mean, at least I got this game, I guess. But there was some interesting chess in there, and I don't concentrate that well when I'm winning, and I need to start doing that. Or at least have good positions. I keep saying winning. Winning's a really rough term, because you can still lose a game when you've got false mate in 3. If you don't see it, you still lose. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. Got loads of chess coming up. I've been promoted to the first board of the second team for the Celtic Tigers, because I've done well on board 2. Managed to get 3.5 out of 4 against good players. They've all been like high 160s. So having a good season. So hopefully that will continue. But I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you all soon.